the most solid path, to have something concrete. So thank you so much again, and feel free to stick around for the rest.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for having me, and good luck. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, catch up soon. All the best. So, Maria Pia.
Hi, Marcelo.
Hello
Thank
there.
you for the invitation.
Let me just pin you here. There you go. So thanks for joining. We are starting a little bit late, so I asked if the next speaker can start 10 minutes after the scheduled time. And thanks for joining. I guess a quick intro is that we're both in the blockchain space, and we met through Don Tapscott's blockchain revolution. I don't know if he was in New York or some other events.
Actually, yes, it was in New York.
Yeah.
With John Bigham. We were having some beers in a bar after the blockchain revolution, the second edition launch.
Yeah, that was a
in
great.
In front of the Microsoft building. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And you, the New York Times, right? I think it was the Times building, some typical New York place, but it was very enjoyable then. So I'm glad that they had a chance to connect. And the format that we have here, like sharing experiences that made you wiser in the past. I'm especially interested in what you have to share, because it's relatively easy for me to get speakers from Brazil, because I was born there and that's where I grew up. And the intention is obviously to have teenagers coming from different countries, and we have not so far, as much as I can recall, had a speaker from Latin America. Well, actually I had a Mexican, let's say South America, who's not Brazilian. So you're the first one. So your voice is especially important. So
Thank you.
Go ahead. And
well, we have to fix that. I can help you with other, Latin American speakers, so you can have, that point of view too. And first of all, well, thank you for everyone. Also, I have to confess, I'm not in Chile. I'm here in Madrid. Actually, I have been in Europe since mid-January. I came here, for meetings and speak as I had a speech in Davos and meetings in Dublin, here in Madrid, and the COVID caught me here. So I have been around since. Well, yesterday I had the opportunity to join the meetings to have an idea on, the kind of insight of which and here also the young generation, to the questions that you made. And I was very touched by what Elizabeth Taylor spoke yesterday. Actually, I totally agree with her that you need to get, that life, it should be a game. And even though we grew up, we shouldn't really lose that sense of, the need of discovering new things and be very connect with what we are doing. First, I want to talk a bit of what I do and my background, and then, tell you from my experience what would have been those insights that could have helped me to know before, and of course they could have helped me to transit in an easier and faster way to what really moves. That is what I'm doing the last 2.5 years. Well, I was born in Santiago de Chile. I grew up there. I studied economics, business, and public policy. I was very, how can I say, blessed, because my first job was in the city in London. I worked for BBVA in the research department for Latin America, in very interesting times for an economist. So after the Corralito in Argentina, I I faced a corralito in Uruguay, being in the bank side, so it was very fun. And since then, I had the opportunity to meet, very important people. I was just 24, and I was sent by BBVA to Canning House to represent the bank for meetings with presidents of Latin American countries, the most well-known economists. And sometimes I was just talking to someone, and he gave me his card, his presentation card, and he was the chief economist for Shell. I was, because when we were speaking, I was giving him some advice actually about the Brazilian bonds. And, and I was just 24. And when I realized that I was talking to the, chief economist of Shell International, I said, come on, this is cool. In those times, there's something, and for a long time, I had all my work experience by chance. They have, connect me with very important people, especially in Latin America. I'm talking with former presidents, former ministers, business leaders. But in those times, I wanted to fix to the of what they were expecting from an economist. Of course, in those days, I'm talking about 20 years, 15 years ago, and even 10 years ago, in those days also being a woman was not helpful, especially in the economic environment I was moving, because, since the beginning, I was connected with, these amazing, thinkers and economists, minister, whatever. And in those days, I'm also, when I said that I was trying to fix, it means not just of, being very careful about what I was saying, the way I was speaking, or even how I was dressed, because I really wanted to fit. Actually, I was dressing just with trousers and, with jackets that were very formal, because I really wanted also to mix in this male environment. And it didn't help. Although I had amazing, jobs and opportunities, I didn't feel comfortable. And also what happened to me is that since all my time, I have been able to, how can I say? I would say it's not see things that others don't. It's just that, to analyze things differently. And, sometimes people didn't understood it, or sometimes my language was too simple, because my analysis, using this parsimonial principle that we economists love to work with, is that we like to talk to a lot of people, but finally there's some few key conversations that helps you to wrap up an idea, and sometimes even to forecast something. And as my methodology was not an econometric model, for instance, I felt I was not good enough. And actually, I can tell you that once I reject being the principal economist for Latin America of a very well-known Spanish bank, because I didn't felt enough confident that, I didn't have all the tools that the economists were supposed to have. For instance, deep econometric knowledge. But in the same meeting, I did a forecast, for instance, about the price of the copper, that everything what I said started to happen between 1 or 2 months after. And why I'm telling you this story is because sometimes, and it has to do with what Elizabeth Taylor spoke just today, sometimes you don't listen to yourself. You you think because you want to match or fit, that what you have, the value that you have, is not enough, or it's not something that would be valuable for others because it's not part of the mainstream. And most of the time we're wrong, really most of the time. Actually, one excellent example is Greta Thunberg. I mean, she has, it's not a disease. I mean, well, she has a pathology or whatever, I really don't know the term, but that makes her to say what she thinks about a topic that moves her, that is climate change. And that passion and even that anyone would have say that it was a flaw, actually, as she said, is her best asset, because she's saying things directly, and and her words have been heard. So, wrapping up, authenticity and believe in yourself. I mean, trust what you have to give. And as Elizabeth Taylor said yesterday, and probably it's something that you have been doing your whole life. It's just that you do it in a different way. Secondly, be yourself, authenticity. That is the most valuable thing that you have to offer. If it is a formal consultancy firm, as McKinsey that you were speaking about just today, even if you're different, even if you dress different, even if you have different approach to things, different insights, that's the value, diversity. So, and also what happens is that if you're authentic, you feel happy, you feel that you can be yourself, you express yourself, and you give all what you have in the field. You give, and then it's a way that you can, in the future, and you're paving the path for fulfilling your potential in whatever is your call. There's other important things, is that you don't need to have all the answers. Really, sometimes life knows much more about you and where you can be and where you can bright much more. Actually, and that is at least is what happened to me, especially the last 2.5 years, that since I decided to get in the blockchain space, because to be honest, I mean, I'm not a blockchain technician, but for at least 10 years, I have been, thinking about new business model and how to fix regional or global, problems, and how the problem was that the incentives were not in the right place. So I was thinking about all these kind of issues for the last 10 years. And finally, what happened is that, of course, 2.5 years, they invite me to start working and be part of the blockchain space. That is a technology that allows what I have been thinking the last 10 years in all these business models. Okay, they can be enabled with the technology. So 10 years ago, everyone thought I was crazy, really. Actually, I wanted to do my public policy thesis on these topics regarding regional integration in South America. And they didn't allow me because they told me that it was not a sexy topic. And look how sexy is today, that kind of topics. So, just sometimes life will tell you, but finally, as Elizabeth told us yesterday, it's probably something that you have been doing for years. It's just going to change the way that you do it. Also, something that has been very useful, at least for me, it was that networking is not enough. Mentoring is good, but what you need is a sponsor. what is the difference? So in networking, you just talk to people and see if you can, at any time, do something together. Well, it helps. Networking helps to connect. And as we spoke, sometimes you meet people in the most unforeseen places or circumstances, and then some few years later, you're doing big things together. And that's the way life happens. Mentoring also helps a lot because you get to know much more about certain topics or certain sectors or the trip, the journey that someone that you admire have had. But finally, you need a sponsor, someone that really believes in you, and that opens you doors. Actually, I learned this in a conference. It was a Women in Finance conference in Chile that was organized by the Council of the Americas, and you know, and the women, that it was the women ambassador of the United States in Chile said this, and it made total sense. I mean, you need people that will help you, will give you a hand. So finally, those are the insights I would tell you that worth to know. At least it worth, they have been very valuable in my own journey. And of course, I know there are much more to come. And I think it's amazing that we are having this kind of opportunity to, share what have been our leapfrogging moments. So you can leapfrog faster than we have. And actually also because, the rhythm of the world is changing. I mean, it's accelerating, especially now with the COVID. And Generation Z, you have an amazing challenge ahead. And as everything's been accelerating, actually, now you don't need to be 25 or, or even, or 35 to start a career. The exploration starts or should start, since school. That's why, any kind of workshop that has to do with either innovate with, creating new projects or whatever, are amazing tools for any kid. Imagine Vitalik Buterin, that he created Ethereum, and he had been working on this since he's 18. And the same happened with Zuckerberg. So you can start doing things, but don't feel the pressure. Start playing. You have time, but don't let anyone tell you that you are too young to do something, because it's not. Actually, now what we see is that much more young people are being much more empowered, and they're giving a lot of contribution to the world, not just to their counties or towns. So I, invite you, first of all, to discover what you like, to explore as much as you can in that topic, and create and try, and you will fail, and then you can start something completely different. But at the end, you will see, as Steve Jobs said in one speech in Stanford, finally, there's a point where all the dots gets together. And then you understand why you had a specific journey. And even in failures, there's a lot, and hard situations like the one that we are facing, at least it's different. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we have, in some way, some few months, we have lose freedom. We were not able to go out of our houses. We're not able to go to work or to go to school. So, but don't be afraid. I mean, face it like an opportunity. And that is also, I would say, it's a very good insight of my career. At the beginning, you know, I'm Virgo, so for me, it's very hard when I fail because, you know, I'm very hard with myself. I have been very hard with myself. But finally, I have realized that everyone fails. Failure can be your best teacher. What depends on is on how you face it. And also that is an invitation. I would encourage you to see these situations as it's not a challenge, but I would say it's between a learning and adventure, mainly an adventure. So that's the resume of what I wanted to tell you. I don't know, Marcelo, if you have any questions.
Yeah, and just to complement what you're saying, your personality is not happens to you, is what you do with what happens to you, right? You can have the kind of person, being a little bit cheesy here, you can throw stones at a person. Some people would just shrivel and give up. Some others will become mountains. They'll take the stones and they'll make a mountain out of it.
Exactly.
It's important to understand the pain of failing. We always try in the Davos events of Wisdom Accelerator to sneakily trick the teenagers into learning something, believing they're having fun. And I believe that this is a very effective method because I've seen it working so many times. And one of the exercises we're planning to do in Davos next January, which now I have to postpone because the World Economic Forum just announced we're doing it in summer. I don't know, we can do it anyway. We would like to have the Wisdom Accelerator group making pottery. So they'll be making bowls or something and learning how to use those super old machines and from the beginning of civilization, right? Let's get a machine that was used 10,000 years ago, build a modern version and tell them, this is what people used to drink water that time because it was the only option other than using your own hands. And then you get them to paint them beautifully. And if you have a kiln, we can have ceramics. And then you're going to ask them to smash it. So basically, that's an hour building something. And it's like, now you're going to destroy it so that you can go through the emotion of loss in a safe environment.
Exactly.
Now,
and by the way, in the same time, as you are talking about old machines, is go back to history, and knowledge that is there, because there's some knowledge there. I mean, they did that and some long time ago, any kind of machine, and that was the most amazing discovery. I mean, so get to understand that the transition of the humanity in terms of that everything has his own time. And because what happened, Marcelo, that, I remember when you were speaking about this, something I didn't spoke about. It has to do also that it's very important to not being arrogant. The world is changing, yes. So new generations, they have a different point of view, of course. But what makes a really good combination is, to mix different views. That's what diversity has to do, because then you have old knowledge, new knowledge, and you create something different. When you destroy something, as you were now talking about, you destroy something to create something new, because when you destroy something, you are able to create something new, because then you already have one knowledge. You have the knowledge how to start building something. So it's very important for new generations also to be very respectful about older generations. because no one by itself has the answers. It's a mix.
Yeah, with the previous speaker, where we're talking about similar topics, I'm just thinking in terms of you have to pay attention to the way things are done today, but also understand where you're coming from. Right? To the
Exactly.
is that there is this bumper sticker, kind of funny poster saying you should respect the parents because they passed school without Google, right? And put them into, or the teenagers into the station, like being reflective, like, wow, no, what was it like? Literally, you had to figure out where to find information, where are the different sources. And one of the biggest inspirations for the formats of Wisdom Accelerator is Paleolithic villages, where knowledge was transformed and adapted through the experiences of the elders who sit around the fire after they had enough to eat, and they'll share the stories with the younger generations.
Beautiful.
And that's what we're doing here, right? Literally, we have this virtual global fireside chats where people are not in a circle, but in Davos, we sit around in a circle, right? There is one person sharing experiences and the others are just asking questions. And in the NeoWave format, we have more flexibility, of course, to have different types of challenges, but this is more or less what we're trying to achieve. So I will just wrap the idea of having this Paleolithic village. Maybe in Davos during summer, we can actually rebuild something that looks like a proper village from the Paleolithic period. Making pottery, basically trying to experience life as it was 10,000 years ago. Exactly. And the idea of going back to basics is to almost like if you're into photography, you have to have certain benchmarks. I mean, what are the right color levels? And what is the right frame? And from those benchmarks, you can then be creative. You need to understand the rules to be able to break them.
Exactly.
And
totally agree.
The whole idea of going back to how do you make a pot if you're a caveman, right? As in, you learn, you have fire, you have a few other things, but you kind of on the way to civilization. How did that happen? And doing that with,
and you don't have Google, and you don't have your mobile, and you don't have
anything.
I would say eBay or whatever that brings you all the material to your house.
You have clay, you have, other than clay, you have fire, you have your hands.
Exactly.
So back to really basics. I just sent in a group chat something that is called kintsugi. As a Japanese art, you can see in the chat the image of a pot that fell and broke, maybe on purpose, maybe not. And what the Japanese do with kintsugi is to put the pot back together, but they're not trying to hide the cracks. They literally paint it with gold, as in they're highlighting the scars of that object, and that makes it truly unique, right? Yeah. And in many ways, as people, this is what we're going through. We have our scars, and we're always trying to hide, especially the first mention of you not being so self-assured and not good enough. It tends to affect women, and especially younger women. The kind of imposter syndrome is such a big deal that needs to be addressed. And what kintsugi is the opposite. Like you look at the scars and you make them gold. I think this is what makes it unique. And
yes,
we
have agree.
The next speakers are waiting. So kind of you, Guido, to wait for us to finish that, but you can have your full 20 minutes. Maria Pia, thank you so much for giving us a different perspective.
Thanks to you.